Good evening. Onam Asham Sakal to all of you. Thank you for joining us for this webinar entitled The Story of Onam. A harvest festival that signifies abundance, Onam is an integral part of Malayali culture and is celebrated in Singapore by Malayalees from all religions, either in their homes or as part of the community. Onam is a unique festival that transcends religion and brings the entire community together. Celebrated over a 10-day period, Onam celebrations are marked with feasting, flowers, and festivities. This webinar will delve into the traditions and observance of Onam as seen in Singapore. It is being held as part of a series of webinars featuring authors of monographs on some Indian festivals and their presence and observance in Singapore. These monographs are published by the Indian Heritage Center and are available for reading and reference on roots.sg, the National Heritage Board's e-resource portal. Our speaker for this evening is Dr. Anitha Devi Pillai, a third or fourth generation Singaporean Malayali who is fluent in English, Tamil, and Malayalam. She's an applied linguist and a teacher educator at the National Institute of Education. She also serves as an executive committee member on the Indian Community Oral History Committee. She was the principal investigator of the Singapore Malayali Story research project that was supported by a National Heritage Board grant. She has published several academic papers and delivered keynote addresses at international conferences based on the findings of these studies. Dr. Pillai has authored 8 books, including a seminal work on Singapore's Malayali community titled From Kerala to Singapore, Voices from the Singapore Malayali Community. She has also published several academic papers, poems, and short stories. She is currently working on a collection of short stories about the Malayalees in Singapore. She will present the story of Onam over 45 minutes, at the end of which there will be a Q&A session. Please feel free to leave your questions on the Q&A window anytime during the session. Without further ado, over to you, Anitha.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anitha, and I'm really pleased to be with you today to share this, to share a lot more about Onam Festival. In fact, today is Onam, and I am in my Onam wear, the Onam Kodi as they call it, and I'll tell you more about the festival today. The story of Onam. Now, Onam is celebrated by the Malayali community. It's a small community, a minority community within the Indian community, the second largest minority community, in fact. And it is only celebrated by them right now. It used to be celebrated by some Tamils as well a long time ago. These are some iconic pictures you would see. I'm often asked, why is everyone in an off-white or white sari with gold, and that is our traditional wear. And I will tell you a little bit more about this picture you see here, about this gentleman with the gear, the royal gear. Is quite an important part of the Onam celebrations. So Malayalis are the second largest sub-community of Indians after the Tamils, and there are about 26,000 Malayalis in Singapore right now. One of the oldest pictures that I was able to find, evidence I was able to find about Onam celebrations in Singapore was dated 1935, and this is a picture of the Malayali Kerala Association in those days and their Onam celebration. And it was a gathering of sorts. It's a rather faded picture, intrigued me, and it's the oldest picture. But so as long as Malayalis were around in Singapore, they have been celebrating the occasion. Of course, it is one of the key festivals of the community. Now, the community is made up of primarily of Hindus, Muslims, and Christians. And interestingly, as Nalina had pointed out earlier on, this particular celebration is a circular one. It's considered a harvest festival. It's considered a festival that brings people together. There are a lot of other terms as well that have been used and associated with Onam. The community speaks Malayalam, and that has been their mother tongue has been one of the principal factors that has kept them together, drawn the community together. Now, while the statistics, while official national statistics state that has a figure for Malayalis in Singapore from 1911 onwards, and that's when we started taking stock of, taking account of the people here, the Indian community here and the Malayali community here. Anecdotal evidence has proven, when I spoke to people, that where their families have been around for much longer, their families have been around, but I haven't been able to get photographs, of these families. So, however, the earliest evidence that the earliest arrival of Malayalis, it seems, could possibly be in 1819, because the Malabar Muslim Mosque, and Malabar is a place, it's not, it's in Malabar Central, Kerala, Central Kerala and Travancore, and these were the three parts of what makes up Kerala today. Kerala is where Malayalis are from. This is South India. And so the Malabar Muslim Mosque has existed since 1819, and that is one piece of evidence that we have, that perhaps the earliest migrants from the Malayali community could be the Malayali Muslims. Yeah. Now, before I go into what Onam means and what Onam is and what the background of what Onam is, I thought I'll share with you what the youth of Singapore, think Onam is, what it means to them, and how do we, as a diasporic community, how do we celebrate Onam here? What does the younger generation think of Onam? So let me share a short clip with you.
Sadhya. Sadhya?
Sadhya.
What does Onam mean to you?
Sadhya.
Food, usually food.
My grandmother's place with all my cousins who put attapu together.
My friends call me over to their home to actually celebrate.
Doing the pukalam with my mom.
Having the feast together and just laughing and chit-chat.
Meeting family and friends.
My father used to bring me and my sister to pluck flowers to make the attapu.
Sitting around the table, eating together, and really spending some time together as a family.
So it's my job to do the pukalam in the morning.
Okay, because I'm Muslim, so I don't really celebrate Onam in a religious way, but I celebrate it in a cultural way.
I think Onam Day itself, sometimes it's a working day, so we can't celebrate it on the day, so we usually celebrate it on the weekend. In the weekend, so
where I dress up, wear the mundu and the shirt, and I get very excitedly dressed to go to my friend's house and celebrate it together with them.
Definitely the eating.
Getting together as a family.
Lots of eating.
we'll wake up, we'll have some prayers, and then we'll go to my grandmother's house.
A happy time.
And then everyone gets together at home, and we usually have Sadhya.
We will have the lunch together, we will pluck a lot of flowers nearby, and then we'll make our own attapu or pukalam.
Because my family comes together on that day, we all go to our grandparents, or my grandparents' place. We mainly eat, that's kind of just mainly what we do. Talk, and for me it's a little bit more of a special day because I was also born on Onam Day, so I get a little bit more attention and more surprises and gifts.
So, what did we hear from that? We heard a couple of words, right? We heard the Ona Sadhya mentioned many times. Ona Sadhya is the banquet, the feast, the meal that is served on Onam Day. It's generally in most parts of Kerala a vegetarian meal of 26 items, right? We get really excited about that, of course. And of course, depending on which part of Kerala you come from, you have slight variation in what's served on the Ona Sadhya. Now, it also depends on the sort of harvest that particular place where you're from, your ancestors are from, is known for. So, it kind of, you get slight variations, but it's a real feast, and that's what all of us remember when it comes to Onam Day. You wake up early, you get dressed, as I did, and then if you're a Hindu, then there are prayers, and you pray for goodwill and for peace for everyone and good for the family, and then you go off and do this attapu kolam. It's just flowers. it doesn't have to be very elaborate, expensive flowers. It's just flowers that's around the house. I mean, traditionally it was just flowers around your garden that you pick and you do this flower pattern, and I'll show that to you. And it's called a flower carpet. It's a floral pattern that we do on the floor. It takes a while, to get that done, and I'll talk about that in a bit. And you do that, and then you heard about those two things, and that came out key. There are a lot of other things as well that's part of Onam, but this is what the youth remember. And what was interesting as when I heard them was because I asked them, what does it mean to you? What's the one word that comes to you? Tell me what Onam is to you, because I thought I'll start from them. It really is about coming together. It is akin to the Chinese New Year, the Eve, the dinner that they have, the Eve. So it's the whole family coming together and having a meal together. Now, the date, going back to, so the date of Onam differs every year. Because the Malayalam, it follows the Malayalam calendar, not the Western calendar. It falls in the first month of the Onam, the Malayali calendar, the Chinga Masam, it's the month of Chingam. And because it's got two different sides, yeah. It's got the completely circular side, which is because it's a harvest festival primarily. But it's also got a Hindu myth associated with it, and it is more of a community. It started off as a community celebration as well. Before it's community celebration in the temples, before it even became a celebration in the home. Interestingly, it's called the National Festival of the Malayalees, and it was declared the National Festival of Kerala by the Kerala government in the 1960s. And someone I spoke to in Singapore, one of them, Singapore Malayalees, a second generation Singapore Malayali, Mr. Raghavan Ashokan, said that Onam may not have been an official public holiday. And this is about him growing up in Singapore, yeah. All of others and fellow Malayalis would certainly take the day off. The traditional Ona Sadhya was something we all looked forward to. And of course, he and a lot of the older Malayali community, members of the community whom I spoke to, talked about neighbors coming together, neighbors of different races and faiths coming together to prepare this meal. I mean, it's 26 items. I took the shortcut of actually ordering in this year. Instead of cooking it. I've not really handled the 26 items, to be honest. It's always been my mom's duty. So it's about a lot of things that we do, be it the poo column. Poo column is the flower carpet that I talked about the flower carpet, or where be it the meal. A lot of it is about bringing everyone together. Sorry, I do see some of you raising your hands. Would it be okay if I delve to the questions later on, please? I will carry on with this, and then we'll, as Nalina explained, I'll come to the questions later on, yeah? Okay, now there are several sayings, several funny sayings as well, and but I've shared some of the key ones. That, the sayings associated with with Onam, shows you the significance of the celebration. So one of it talks about how a place is not considered civilized one if there's no Onam celebration there. Another one says that, even if you have to sell off your property, do that. You must have a proper Onam meal, the Ona Sadhya that, the youth of the Singapore Malayali Association were talking about in the earlier clip. And the last one is my favorite. That your stomach whistles away in glee after an Onam meal. And indeed, it puts you in I think you really get tired because of all that you'll be eating on that day, which we have this afternoon. Now, what is the significance? I thought instead of going into the historical significance, I would look at what it means to people. So one of the things that I found, and this was written in the papers in 1930, is that what Christmas is to Christians, Onam is to Malayalis. Now, it is an integral part of the community. It's the most important festival that we celebrate. but also because, and this doesn't pertain to everybody, but to many of us, to many Hindus, right? I mean, apart from it being a secular festival, for many Hindu Malayalis, we don't really celebrate Deepavali. It's a day of prayers, but we don't really celebrate it. So it's Onam that is celebrated. But Onam is not a holiday in Singapore, right? Because it's a minority communities festival. So, and therefore, in fact, we adapt the celebration to a fair bit, and I will talk about that as well as we go on. Now, there are multiple descriptions of the origin of the festival, and there is no one single explanation about the exact period or origin of the festival. So, circular harvest festival. Why is it's unique? Because Hindus, Malayalis, Christians, everybody comes together to celebrate it. They celebrate it in very different ways, but they come together to celebrate it. It's about August, September that the celebrations take place. And as I mentioned earlier, because of the Malayalam calendar doesn't align itself with the Western calendar, so it's rather different. So the date may change every year. It marks the start of the harvest festival in Kerala and the end of the monsoon festival. And I'd like to share with you a quotation from Fuad, and then I spoke to him about Onam celebrations in Singapore. He's a Malayali Muslim, second generation Malayali Muslim. And he said, when I was younger, we lived in Queenstown and had a lot of non-Muslim Malayali friends in our circle. In fact, we had always celebrated Onam. It was a much bigger occasion than Hari Raya in those days. Onam was always perceived as a Malayali festival and not a religious festival. My mother would cook all the traditional vegetarian dishes on that day. Onam was celebrated for a week, and we took turns hosting our extended family and friends. Onam sports would take place at the end of the first week. And in those days when I was growing up, everyone knew everyone else in the community. And I agree with them. In my generation too, we sort of knew people, at least by sight, or someone who knows someone, and it's a very tight-knit community, and it still is to some extent, but it was a very tight-knit community when I was growing up, and which meant that you had many Onasadyas to attend. Now, the Hindu myth about Onam. So the myth is that there was a king, Mahabali, who ruled Kerala, all of Kerala, and he was a gracious, benevolent, kind king. If you ask the Malayali community, it was a golden period, and in fact, it's because of him. I mean, there's a song, Onapata, Song of Onam, the Onam song. Sorry, song of Onam song. And Onapata is all about Malayalees' reign and, how people were happy and how people were treated fairly in those days. So he was a benevolent king, and the myth is that one of the gods, Indran, was jealous and went to Vishnu, Mahavishnu, and Vishnu he's a god, and it's about him it's about Mahabali becoming more powerful than the gods. So Vishnu comes in the guise of a Brahmin and goes to the king and says, and the king would give what the Brahmin asked for, and said, will you give me, I want this boon, and Mahabali says yes. And in fact, the first painting that if you look at the first painting, his advisor is trying to tell him, don't, that's someone in guise, and the advisor actually recognizes him, but Mahabali, it's too late. Mahabali has already said yes and poured water of his hand to seal the deal, and he says, what do you want? And he said, I want just 3 steps of land, that footsteps, just 3 footsteps. And Mahabali goes, take it. But this is Mahavishnu, isn't he? He is the protector. So he then he grows into his own cosmic form. He puts, with 1 footstep, he measures earth. With 1 footstep, he measures heaven. And then he looks at Mahabali and says, where should I put my 3rd footstep? Where should my 3rd piece of land come from? Mahabali said, on my head, my lord. But before he could do that, Mahabali asked for a boon. He was a good king. He was a good person. And Vishnu said, yes, what do you want? I want to come back once a year to see my subjects. I want to know that they're well. I want to know that they're, and I just want to see them. And that wish was granted. So what happens is, on the first day of Onam, that the day that we think, there are 10 days of Onam. So he takes 9 days to get back to earth from the nether world, right? And those are the 9 days that we prep. And on the 10th day is Thiruvonam. So today is Thiruvonam. So it's an Onam festival, Onam celebration today. So today is the day, the day that we celebrate. So it's all his 9 days are marked. So with that, once he was given the, the boon, Mahavishnu put his Vaman put his foot on his head and banished him to the netherworld. Now, I would like to share with you the Ona Pata that, it's the Onam song. And this is sung by Rekha Dinesh from Singapore, especially for this particular lecture, yeah? Let me play that. And in the song, you will notice it basically talks about the reign of Mahabali. It talks about the time of Mahabali and his rule in those days. And it's a universal song. I mean, it's sung every year in Onam, on Onam Day. Sit back and enjoy. big shout out to the team who put that together. Yeah, thank you so much, Rika and company. Okay, so it is a 10-day festival. And what happens is that in Kerala, it's 10 days of holiday, yeah? What happens is, so I talked about the Pookolam, the Pookolam that we do. And in fact, it is traditionally started every day you do one, you do the first layer and then you do the second layer and you do the third layer. And, traditionally it was just circular. It wasn't as elaborate as it is now. These days, it's award-winning art pieces on the ground. And I'll share with you some of it. And so that is done, and then there is this, of course, the 26-course vegetarian meal that I mentioned that is into the highlight of the final day, the 10th day, and you have Ona Kaligal and games, the Onam games. You have Onam dance, you have Onam music, you have those are done as a community as well as within the home, right? And of course, Ona Kodi, which is your new clothes that you wear. So a couple of words, and all of it has the word Onam, Onam, Onam. Yeah. Okay, so let me run through what happens traditionally in these 10 days. Now, each of this day has there's a name for each of these days, and it's based on the Malayalam calendar. And if you wish to know more, actually, I'll share with you a link to the book, the monograph that Ms. Nalina talked about earlier on, and you can look through that for more details. I'm just giving you the highlights. So on the first day, the Hindus start off with a temple visit. And then the Hindus who celebrate Onam believe that Mahabali has started his journey, right? And then you start with the first layer of flowers, and it's traditionally yellow. On the first day. So when you do this, it's Pookolam. So, a flower carpet done with flowers. So that's why it's Pookolam. It's, and when it's done from the first day onwards, it's Atta Pookolam. So any other time that you do it, it's Pookolam. It's when it's an Onam festival and you're starting on the first day, then it becomes Atta Pookolam. Okay, the second day is marked with, is for spring cleaning. So think about it, why 10 days? Each day, of different things happen. Now, as a community, when this grand celebration coming up, it is the biggest celebration of the year that you've got coming up, that everyone is involved, all your neighbors are involved. So if you were in Kerala and you had to prepare for this, it makes sense, doesn't it, to have a day assigned for a different thing. It's like a timetable of sorts, okay? So the second day is for cleaning up the home, ensuring, everything is, you clear everything out. First day you go to the temple, it's a start of the, you start off, with the light the lamp and you put the flowers, and then second day you clean the home, you put the second layer. Third day you go shopping for clothes and jewelry. Highlight, of course, and you've got to do this early to prepare for your celebration. And then on the fourth day, you start preparing for the Ona Sadhya. Hey, it's 26 items. It takes a long time to prepare, and there'll be so many people coming in to the home on that day. And there's pickles and all that need to be done way in advance as well. Now, the fifth day is a community celebration. And for this, they do, they gather together. There's a place in Kerala that they gather together. And it's a snake boat race. It's called Vallam Kali, games that's played in water. And I'm really, really pleased to share with you that you don't need to go to Kerala for this. We've had this organized, Vallam Kali organized in Singapore itself, and I'll show you a little a news snippet later on. And you can find, if you go onto YouTube, you can find videos of Singapore's Vallam Kali, right? Just put the words snake boat race, Kerala Onam boat race on YouTube, and it will come up. Okay, and on the sixth day, we traditionally go to ancestral homes and exchange gifts, and lots more saris being exchanged, right? Then 3 days before Onam, on the 7th day, a smaller scale of Ona Sadhya is given to visitors, because you can't all be visiting everyone on Onam day. Everyone has Ona Sadhya to prepare in their homes. So it's difficult to do the visiting, so we start doing it a little earlier. On the 8th day, of course, the Ona Pookolam becomes a lot bigger. And they do, apparently they do small statues of Mahabali and Vamanan in clay statues. I've seen photographs of this. I've never seen it done in Singapore in any of my friends' homes or any of my relatives' homes. I've been calling India to ask my relatives in India as well whether they do it. And I haven't, I mean, not in my family, but I'm sure people do. But this was done traditionally, you know, so they do little statues and of Mahabali and Vamanan arriving, and you know, it's to signify, it's to signify the day. And remember, to do all this, you get the group together, right? You get the family together. The children are involved, the women are involved, the men are involved. So you know, you've got all different things, and everyone comes together to put all this together. So it's all about collaboration. So then the 9th day, the eve, this is of course when you've got to buy your vegetables fresh, you get your vegetables fresh from the farm, from your land and all. And there, and you know, and it's there's a funny saying as well in Malayalam about women being really hurried and everything happening in a hurry-burry sort of fashion. And of course, 9th day is also when Mahabali arrives on earth, we believe. Then on the 10th day, which we refer to as Thiruvonam, this is a day that, and I've described this a little earlier on, this is a day that we wake up early and then we have the all bath and pray. And the eldest female member of the family generally hands out new clothes to the rest of the family members. Ona Sadhya and Pukolam in the morning. And of course, then you play traditional games, sing songs together. There are a couple of videos on YouTube as well on some of the celebrations, family home-based celebrations in Singapore, and that you can pull up. I wish this was a 3-hour lecture. I could pull all these things up for you to share with you on how Onam is celebrated in Singapore. And then that's followed by, once the 10th day is over, actually there are 2 more days that's significant as well. Although the 10th day is the Onam, we have community games and community functions that take place within it. You know, of course, it goes on for a month these days, but for 2 more days it goes on as well. And on the 12th day actually is Chadayam. While Chadayam is not Onam, Chadayam is it's a birthday of the Guru and Sri Narayana Mission. We have traditionally, as when I was growing up, always gone to Sri Narayana Mission for the Ona Sadhya that is served on Chadayam day in the afternoon. And Sadhya is always lunch, yeah? Now, it's a community's celebration. It started off as a community celebration. And what do we do as a community? Imagine the migrants who arrived in Singapore, in Malaya in those days. They must have been really, I mean, to arrive in a place where Malayalam is not spoken, it's not one of the national languages, it's not being a minority. And I suppose this is true for any diasporic community that goes into another, that migrates, right? So they imagine being isolated, imagine, you know, being far away from this grand 10-day celebration. I mean, every single day something was happening around you, right? And you come to Singapore and it's work. And so they had celebrations certainly. So one of the earliest records I found was 1980, and in Straits Times. So they used to advertise, the Malayali community used to advertise. It was a Malayali association. Then it was used to advertise and say in the newspaper and say that, oh, we're going to have a celebration, you know. And then once the celebration was over, the Onam celebration was over, and then they would report on it. And of course, it's about a meal. They have lectures like we do today. They have lectures, honor lectures, and they have talks, they have musical entertainment, they have games. And that continued, you know, and that I think helps the community bond as one as well and form a new community, form the Singapore Malayali community, because not everything works, right? I mean, a harvest festival in a country where we are no longer dependent on harvest, and I mean, we are a modern society, and I mean, industrials, you know, in industrialization and all of that. At that point in time, what relevance does it have? But it does, because it's about abundance. It's about coming together. It's about celebrating a unique festival that brings us all together and brings us away from the day-to-day living. I was really excited when I found this ad from the 50s from, Ananda Bhavan advertising Ona Sadhya. And clearly it was targeted at those who didn't have families here. And of course, maybe like people like me who can't pull off the 26 items of the Ona Sadhya on her own. So this, so Ona Sadhyas were always offered in restaurants. It was something that we had access to, which is wonderful. The community, there was a lot of recognition with the community. Yes. Now, the next thing that I'm going to show you is an Onam poem written by Mr. M.K. Basi, one of our famous poets, Malayalam poets in Singapore. We've had a lot of famous Malayalam writers in Singapore. The community has produced a lot of famous writers. And this one, and I love Mr. M.K. Basi's work. And this one poem about Onam, and where he brings across, and it was written a long time ago and published in Onam Baharam, which is an Onam magazine that is published by Singapore Malayali Association. And this poem was about a longing of a migrant to be back home and wondering what his mother is thinking. So it's going to be read by Dr. Vidya Pillai. Sit back and enjoy their subtitles.
Innu Onamana by M.K. Basi. പൂവണി മരച്ചോട്ടിൽ ചന്ദ്രിക ചിത്രലേഖാ ചാതുരി കാട്ടുന്നൊരി ഓണരാവുകൾ തോറും തുമ്പിതുള്ളിയും പാട്ടുപാടിയുമെൻ നാട്ടിലെ പെൺകൊടിമാരൊക്കെയും തളരുന്നുണ്ടാവണം. 7 നെയ്ത്തിരികൾ നിന്നെരിയും വിളക്കിന്റെ ദീപനാളത്തിൻ മുന്നിൽ അമ്മ ഈ സന്ധ്യാനേരം. ഓർക്കുകയാവാമെന്നെ ദൂരെ എങ്ങേതോ നാട്ടിൽ ഏകനായി കഴിയുന്ന മകനെപ്പറ്റി. പക്ഷേ ഉണ്ണുവാൻ ഇലയിട്ട നേരമിന്നാ കൺകളിൽ തങ്ങിയിരുന്നുവോ 2 കണ്ണുനീർ കണികകൾ. അലയാഴികൾക്ക് മിങ്ങിപ്പുറമീ വാടകമുറിയിൽ ചിതറിയ പുസ്തകക്കൂട്ടങ്ങളും താരകങ്ങളെ ആഞ്ഞുമുത്തുവാൻ വെമ്പും മുക്തമോഹന പ്രതീക്ഷകൾ നിറയും കരളുമായി ഇവിടെ. ജന്നാലതന്നരികത്തിരമ്പുന്ന നഗരം നോക്കിക്കൊണ്ട് മൂകനായിരിപ്പൂ ഞാൻ.
I must tell you something. She has an excellent command of the Malayalam language. She's a 3rd generation Singapore Malayali. And I'm really grateful to both of them, Ms. M.K. Basi and Dr. Vidya, for sharing this poem with us. It's an important poem, and I remember reading it for the first time in translation. I remember reading it for the first time and thinking, oh my goodness, it must have been so isolating to be so far away. It must have been so difficult for early migrants, and he has captured that feeling, to the T. So the next thing that I want to share with you about Onam is the universal appeal of Mahabali. Now, I talked about how it being a circular harvest festival. I talked about how Ona Sadhya brought everyone together, right? Be it the preparation or the eating of the meal. Now, there is also something else that is interesting about the Onam festival, that Mahabali, on his own, not Vamanan or Vishnu, but Mahabali as the king, has a universal appeal, right? You will see Mahabali in celebrations, be it a church, the church is celebrating Onam, you will see Mahabali there. There is no, it's Mahabali is kind of a symbol, like your Santa Claus, I feel, in some ways, of Christmas. And this particular, when I saw this newspaper article, actually I saw it at Indian Heritage Center's library, and I saw this article. I was just taken back in time to that moment. Actually, I was there when this took place, and we always have a Mahabali, an uncle in the community, or someone in the community who will dress up as Mahabali. Not necessarily an uncle, but a gentleman who's got smiling eyes and infectious laughter, a kind demeanor. He would dress up as Mahabali, and he would walk in and he would give a speech. And it was always a speech about being united, doing good. It would be an emotional speech about how much he has missed us and how he's back with us, and it will focus on everything that we will focus on abundance. Onam is about harvest in abundance. Onam is about looking forward and therefore forgiveness. Onam is about working together as a community, about living together as a community, and without any division, and which was a reflection of his time when, in his rule. And so that would be the speech, and it's a whole lot of fun, yeah, to, you get dressed up and you go, and this was at Farrer Park, in fact, and you walked in, and I remember sitting at the, the stadium steps, and yeah. So then, Onam celebrations at home. So that was the community celebrations. What do we do at home? And this was me. This was today, in fact, us trying to put up the Pukolam on the picture on the right. We were just trying to do the Pukolam, and so it looks. I don't know whether it looks easy, but I used to think it was easy, but it takes forever to take the flowers. You've got to take the flowers apart and put it together, and you've got to divide it up, and it takes a lot of coordination. There were like 4 or 5 of us in that, and in fact, both of them were the key people who did the whole thing. But it takes a lot of people on board to do this. Now, having said that, on your left, the Pukolam you see was also done today, and by Dr. Vidya, and thank you so much for sharing it. And so it's an intricate. I mean, these are the ones that we do at home. There are far more intricate ones, award-winning ones, and I've shared one in my book where it's actually a picture of Mahabali, and it was done by Swapna and her group, and won an award as well. And there's one on SG50, there's one on Kathakali mask, and very intricate Onam Pukalam that is done in the community and at home. The simpler ones perhaps at home. Ona Sadhya. Oh, Ona Sadhya. Ona Sadhya, this is a picture from Parvati Lijish, and this is and on the right you have a picture of the community coming together. So not only do we have Ona Sadhya at home, we also have community celebrations, and we do also have Ona Sadhyas when we, as a community, they're either the Malayali Association organizes, Malayali Association organizes it. Then you have a lot of CCs now, increasingly so. In the recent years, I've noticed that there are Onam celebrations in so many CCs across Singapore, because we also have an influx of Malayali migrants and professionals who have moved to Singapore in the recent years. So there is a whole range of things that go on for a month. When I was growing up, it was, of course, Ona Sadhya is a highlight, and you have different Ona Sadhyas, and you've got the Chadayam Ona Sadhya, and then you have Ona Rava, where there'll be drama. You will have and drama. You will have dance programs. You will definitely have games. I mean, there's no Onam without games, right? And of course, the Vallam Kali only happened lately. Now, over the years, what has happened is we've started adapting. And an interesting report I read in Tabla a couple of years ago was that people got together because it was, managing the home, and the fact that we don't have large extended families that we had at our ancestral homes, when we came together to celebrate Onam. Remember, it's also a 10-day holiday. There's plenty of time to prepare for the Ona Sadhya. That neighbors, friends came together and took charge of a few items. So everyone does different dishes and comes together, and everyone brings their families. And then you sit down together and have the Ona Sadhya on a banana leaf. It has to be done in a banana leaf. And the wonderful thing is these days, Ona Sadhya gets delivered to you by there's several restaurants in Singapore that deliver to you. And this is just one of the restaurants, an example of, the Sadhya that gets delivered. So we've found ways of adapting. This is today. And the other thing is that it's not always possible to celebrate it the traditional way. So I'd like to share with you something that Rita Raman told me once a few years ago when I asked her about Onam and Ona Sadhya, and she shared that her mother was also raised here all her life, and like my mom, we've adapted the Sadhya to some extent. In fact, my mother used to put in tofu sambal when I was growing up. We don't do that anymore, but we used to do that when we were younger. And I always thought tofu sambal was part of the Ona Sadhya. So it's very difficult to follow traditions. For example, if it is if it's a weekday and we are working, no one's going to be able to have the Sadhya. When When it's a weekday on Onam day, I used to in fact not eat anything the whole day, just wait to get back home and have some, the vegetarian meal, and wait for the weekend where we have the proper Onam Sadhya. In other families like Rita, she said, we even included biryani, rice dish, and a vegetable pulao or traditional like, vegetable pulao instead of the traditional rice and multiple curries. Of course, we have some of the traditional dishes like puli inji or inji puli, kalan, orlan. But really these days, it's what everyone likes that's included in the Vishu or Onam meal. Vishu is the New Year, the Hindu New Year. So Onam meal, it makes sense, doesn't it? So you celebrate the day, you celebrate the whole essence and the idea of coming together as a family. But it doesn't necessarily have to be with all these dishes. So it's adapted for each family. And I think that has happened to many families as well. Ona Kodi. So new clothes, no, you don't only have to wear the Kerala sari, but we do take great pride in wearing the Kerala sari. It's a white and gold sari. We wear it with different blouses. We have variations. It's like what I'm wearing today. This is a variation of it. There's a modern take on the traditional Kerala sari. And men usually wear the munda, the dhoti, the munda, and then of course any shirt. And so it's new clothes. It's to signify beginning. It's to signify abundance. It's to signify new things to come, And yes, it's the first thing we do in the morning. Onam brings the community together. What other example can I give more than this? So we recently, a couple of years ago, we got a place in the Singapore Book of Records by using 1,300 kg of flowers. Just imagine flower petals, 1,300 kg of flower petals. And this huge, massive column that you see was done by several members of the community. Ona Kaligal, the tuck of, the tuck of war, this is something that we always include. Now, I've included a picture of the men. This is a photo from the Syrian church, but we certainly, women do play these, okay? There's no sexism involved at all. We have games. We've even gone boys against girls when we were growing up. And on your right, you see Kaigoti Kali. This is traditionally done by the women. We have the we have the lamb, the traditional Kerala lamb. And yes, it looks different. The traditional Kerala lamb, and women dance around it. There are several dance and several games that we play on Onam Day, many of which I have covered in the book. And if you could have a look at it when you have time, that'd be good. Church celebrations, you have celebrations in the community. This on your right, what you see is when they had a huge number of women, and I mean, hats off to them, rehearsing and practicing and dancing to do the Kaikoti Kali, and that refers to you dancing in a circle in Kaikoti, and it's clapping of the hands, and the movements are really gracious. So that is one, and you can find a lot of these videos on YouTube as well. Just type in Singapore Onam dance, and you will find clips from a lot of CCs, from Malayali Association, from clips that's taken by people, unedited, genuine clips. So lovely clips of Onam celebrations. Of course, you have Mahabali everywhere. If you notice, Mahabali all over there, and over there, and we do Pulikali as well. And yes. And earlier on, I mentioned that you don't have to go to Kerala to get to see the snake boat race. And this is a snake boat race that, and just to share a little bit of what Mr. Stefan shared with me, that people were very receptive of this. And they were really excited that we were organizing this. And we were covered, actually, the press, the news, and all covered it as well. So you will have official clips that you can watch as well of the race. It was just a whole lot of good fun, There were women, there were men, there were people of different races who joined us, in fact, for the celebration. One key, important, essential document that I do think and that I have used extensively for my research in the last 10, 12 years that I've been researching on the Singapore Malayali community is the Onam Baharam, the Onam gift. It's a magazine that the Malayali Association, the Malayali community that came together and formed Malayali Association, and they've of course changed their names many times. So now right now the Singapore Malayali Association. One of the key things that they have put together that I think is very, very crucial is the Onam Baharam. It's a magazine. Right? It's a printed version of the magazine. Of course, now we have the e-magazines as well. And this was essential to my research on understanding the community because it had articles. I found M.K. Basi's poem in it. It had articles from people of the community writing about things that concerned them, writing, there was poetry, there was short stories. There were a lot of articles documenting what had happened. And it started off as our magazines that were completely in Malayalam, and then now it's bilingual. For a while, it was even only in English. Now there is an Onam saying which actually translates into Onam is a time to take stock of your life. What have we done? What have we achieved? How far have we come? And Onam Baharam achieves that. Completely, and it serves to reflect and think and serves to document the Singapore Malayali community for future, for the future generations and for future historians and for anybody who's interested in understanding the community. It was Onam. It was the Onam day that they chose to document this, and I think it's rather significant. It wasn't Vishu. It wasn't January 1st. It wasn't any other day. It was Onam day that they chose to document this, and primarily because it was the time to take stock of our lives. Now, to read more about Onam, you can click on this. You can go to this link. It's Indian Heritage Center has curated a series, as Ms. Nalina mentioned earlier. And I have a book in it. That is the story of Onam. And there's a lot more details about it. For example, did you know Onam was celebrated in Tamil Nadu as well? Well, read the book and find out. Yeah. And so there's a lot more information in there than I can cover in this talk. Now, before I go, I have a few words to share from the community with you, coming from the teens.
Namaskaram. Happy Onam, everyone. May this Onam bring you abundant joy, immense prosperity, and good health in all of your lives. എല്ലാവർക്കും എൻ്റെ ഹൃദയം നിറഞ്ഞ ഓണാശംസകൾ. Wishing everyone good health, wealth, and an amazing Sadhya.
Happy Onam, everyone. Here's wishing everyone good life, good health, and happiness.
പ്രിയപ്പെട്ട എല്ലാവർക്കും ഓണാശംസകൾ. Hope everyone has an amazing time dressing up and indulging in their sadhyas.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Notice how the sadhyas are really important. Now, and happy Onam to everyone who's celebrating Onam today. And if you know anyone who's celebrating Onam, do wish them happy Onam. Anytime this month, yeah, do wish them a very happy Onam. And before we go, you cannot end an Onam talk without the man himself. And I wish to thank Vasu for doing this for me.
Hi, I wish all Malayalis in Singapore and Malayalis across the world a happy and a prosperous Onam. സിംഗപ്പൂരിലുള്ള എല്ലാ മലയാളികൾക്കും ലോകമെമ്പാടുമുള്ള മലയാളികൾക്കും എൻ്റെ ഹൃദയം നിറഞ്ഞ ഓണാശംസകൾ. ഹാപ്പി ഓണം.
Thank you very much. I must say, I owe it a lot to my community who has come together. If you notice, they've done a lot of videos to add on to this talk, who've come together, and I'm really, really deeply grateful to everyone, especially the Malayali community, and a very, very happy Onam to everyone who's celebrating Onam, and to all, everyone who's tuned in. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you. On to you, Nalina.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anitha, for that wonderful visual feast. Really an Onam Sadhya of sorts. You've taken us through such a rich gallery of images and videos of the celebration of this festival that we've unfortunately missed out on this year because of the pandemic. So thank you for really making us a part of the community celebration of the festival this year, right down to an image from this morning of a Pookalam. I think that was really meaningful. So thank you. And I think, as you've rightly brought out through your presentation, festivals have been a very important way that diasporic communities have retained their identity. and really sort of celebrated their identity in the public as well as in the private. And I think Onam has really been that festival. If we happen to pass by, say, Racecourse Road or, Khalsa Association in the past, on Onam Day, I'm sure we would see some activity there as well. And I think, the role of the Singapore Malayali Association, as you rightly pointed out, I mean, it was really interesting to note that within a year of its founding, because it was founded in 1917, in 1918, they've made an attempt to celebrate Onam. And the fact, of course, that later on, in 55, they've started publishing their journal, Onam Paharam. Clearly, this festival is very central to the idea of a community and how everybody comes together irrespective of their, particular affiliations within the community. So thank you for that. I think those were really meaningful aspects of history. Maybe if I could ask you, Dr. Anitha, to begin this conversation between us and, of course, the audience, just to very quickly ask you, what would you say is the one outstanding addition to Onam on behalf of the Singapore community that distinguishes Onam celebrations from how it's held in India? Is there something like that?
I guess we've adapted it to fit our times here. And, you do see inclusion of local life. So you see, okay, I remember Ona Rava and all, and Malayalam dramas being, those, I loved watching the Onam dramas, and it was like quite a big highlight. So many news articles about it would be written about, and the Onam celebrations are coming, and then so-and-so's drama is going to be featured and all of that. You see, a lot of that was included social issues that pertain to Singapore Malayali community. So we would have these historical dramas and all. I remember Helen Teji's drama and all was really lovely. I mean, and then about the Kerala and all that. But we also always had Malayalam dramas done in Singapore, and I wish that could be documented somewhere, because we have this. It was always during Onam Day that it was done. So I guess in terms of the arts, we certainly have adapted and added on to Onam. And if you just look at the Pookalam itself, we had the Kadagali and the Singapore SG50 and all of that combined. So we have, what we have is a Singaporean Onam festival, which adds on, I guess, to the larger celebration of Onam everywhere in the world.
Of course. And maybe if I was to just continue on that note, just the way there have been, dramatized performances, I think the literary arts field has been very active in adding its, weight to the festival. I think like Mr. Basi's poem, I'm wondering if you could share if there have been other instances by Mr. Basi or other poets that might actually bring out the aspirations of the community when it comes to these festivals, right? Some things that might reflect the true situation of them as a diasporic community. And I think if I might draw you out a little further on that, and even on Mr. Basi's poem, it would be really wonderful to hear some of the feelings associated with the celebration of these festivals.
Definitely. So the younger generation, and I think I remember reading Azina's essay on growing up Malayali in Singapore and celebrating, and growing up Malayali in Singapore and Ona Baharam. So the next generation, the younger generation, they are writing, and every generation they write about it in Ona Baharam. There'll be one article here, there'll be one poem here, there'll be one short essay here about, or short story, and it all appears in Ona Baharam, and they talk about and at different times they talk about different things. So that kind of shows how they have their feelings towards Onam, and their feelings as first generation, second generation, third generation. So the first generation, like Mr. M.K. Basi, his poem was not just about him longing for home. It was about what Amma would have thought. Mom must have been waiting. The Ona Satya is such a big thing, and Moon is not there, and her son is not there. And so it went from that to someone who celebrates Onam with very few people understanding what Onam is. And so you have friends, you don't have that many Malayali friends. It's only like my generation, I didn't really have anyone in school who was a Malayali. So it's only when you wait for the association celebrations and then you go on, and then so that sort of connection. So people do write about it. So I, off my head, I can't, apart from Azina's essay, I can't think of another one. And Azina was, a young person writing recently. I can't think of one. but a lot of the feelings are generally nostalgia from the older generation. The younger generation it's about celebration and celebration of a different sort. You know, it's okay if we can't celebrate it on that day. We get to celebrate. We will celebrate it. We get to celebrate it over the weekend, and we get together as a community. So it's a positive thing. I hope I've answered the question.
Yes, you have.
Okay.
And to continue on the note of the youth, you know, I mean, Onam has its roots in a very agrarian tradition.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And, you know, for us here in urban Singapore, how are the youth able to connect with the origins of this festival? And maybe you could share with us what aspects of the festival are attractive to the youth and how you see them preserving this tradition going forward, whether it is, you know, in terms of associational life or whether it is in terms of private observances.
Oh, that's such a good question, because I did wonder when I started doing this, you know, the talk, like, do I go into the history? I've already done that. Do I put all of that in? But what does it mean to the youth? And that's why I started with them. And so I think moving forward, the Onam Sadhya is here to stay. Yeah, we're finding different ways. We're catering. We're going to do it. Yes, we'll come together. Onam Sadhya is here to stay. Okay, it will stay. The Onam games and all, I mean, when we come together as a community, those who are coming to the community, those who are attending the community events, they participate in it. It's more about friendship and getting together. Onam Sadhya will stay. Onam Kodi will stay, I suppose, you know, getting new clothes. It may not, Onam Sadhya may not retain its original form, because I saw that in my home for many years. And then we reverted back to being, you know, going into like, what is traditional? What should we do? Is it a Malabari? Because my mom's from Palakkad, my dad's from Kollam. So which style? So we started retracing and going backwards. But even it will evolve. The Onam Sadhya might evolve, but it will be retained, I think, by the youth. New clothes celebration, I do believe it will be retained. They may not find an affinity to Mahabali, but it is, they will certainly, I don't think Mahabali will disappear, you know, this whole significance, it'll be there in this sort of background. They're quite likely to move forward with modern music and modern songs and all of that, which is fine. Onam is about it, it's a celebration. Come together, celebrate being together. So I think those sorts, I think food, clothes, would they dress in traditional clothes? I still see them dressing in traditional clothes. So they would modernize it. So it won't be the traditional white and gold. They probably have all these different patterns on it, but I do think clothes will remain. Onam is likely to be celebrated, continue to be celebrated.
Yeah, I think as youth continue to sort of adopt a hyphenated identity, whether it's Singapore Indian or Singapore Indian Malayali, I think, you know, you'll find that there is a modernization of some of these things, moving with times. And I think, as you rightly pointed out, it's really about coming together to celebrate your identity through festivals like this. You know, I'm going to ask you one more question leading up from what you said, because, you know, we got a little glimpse of your personal side of things, you know, so I'm wondering, what are some of your earliest memories of observing Onam, and, you know, what you could share with us, you know, in terms of how it's observed at home, you know, through your own personal lens.
Oh, okay. So my earliest memories, my best memories are of attending Malayali Kerala Association. Those days it was, as it was called, Kerala Association celebrations. And as I said earlier on, I was the only Malayali girl in school, Malayali in school. And so it was one place where you can go to hear the language, speak the language, and be part of the community and catch up, because everybody will be all over Singapore and all, you know, in different schools. And kind of like everyone kind of gathers, the ladies will be on one side, they'll be doing stuff, and then the teenagers will be on one side, so it'll be games and all of that. So I remember the community being a very important and integral part of my, you know, growing up years. But I also remember, so at home, it was always prayers, first thing in the morning prayers, and then we would all about the prayers if it was a weekend. If it's a school day, you just get up and go to school, yeah? And I would wait, I would starve the whole day. I wouldn't eat anything outside. I would wait to eat at home, because I would be pure vegetarian on that particular day. I wouldn't, and also you save yourself for that one meal. So, so wait till I got home and have the meal with my family. If it was a week, even if it was a weekday, my parents would have at least some of their friends over, some of their friends who are non-Malayalis over. And then every weekend, there will be one family or other celebrating Onam. And then you kind of like, and there's this like big schedule, they used to have to coordinate. This weekend, Saturday is your, okay, Sunday will be this auntie. And so we will have to coordinate all of that and then coordinate the celebrations, community celebrations. So my favorite memories are being with the community. And it was just a whole lot of fun. There was just about bringing us together. And what helped was, I think, and then you pick up, you don't always know about Onam, then you learn and you hear and you pick up things from, the elders in the community, and they tell you stories. And yeah, it has always had a village vibe. And I'm really happy to see these days with the newer migrants who are coming in, they are creating a wonderful community for the next generation. And of course, welcoming everybody else as well into their fold. And which means that you have a lot more exposure to the language, a lot more exposure to the dance forms, the art forms, and the literary forms. We've got a literary forum now, which is something we had in the early years when we formed the Kerala Association, and now we have that very active. And yes, and I think that's wonderful. So when all of this flourishes together, I think they're all interconnected. So that's wonderful. And as an applied linguist, I'm thrilled. There are so many opportunities for Malayalam to be spoken. Yeah.
Thank you, Anita. I'm just going to ask you one last question and also ask you to share a little bit about the visuals that we see in the monograph, including the one that we see on the slide. But my question is really, I think our audience might also like to know what other festivals are observed by the Malayali community. I think it's important to understand the relevance of this within the calendar that is observed by the community as well, because often, you might think that this is the only festival that is celebrated by the community. So to make sure that we present, an idea of the full calendar, if you could share that with us, and also end off by telling us a little bit about the images that were specially created for the monograph. Because I think they're really stunning visuals that, represent important aspects of the festival. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. So should I start with the images first, or? Yes, okay. So the images were painted, the Pulikali, so if you go to the book as well, you're going to see this in the proper form. The images were of Pulikali, Kadagali, and Onam, the Kaigoti Kali, this Onam, this picture I'm showing you. This is like my favorite picture. They were all painted by this incredibly talented Lakshmi Iyer, a local artist, a local, say, a Singapore Malayali artist. And what you see is this Kaigoti Kali is the dance that we traditionally do. You see the Pookolam right in the middle, the Velakka, and then it's in the Singapore skyline. So we spoke about this concept, and we spoke about the fact that, we maintain the tradition in this setting, in this diasporic setting, right? And that's what she has created. So the Kadagali Krishna, which I used earlier on, one of the, let me see, there's Kadagali Krishna. All the photographs are from the community, and in most of it are in the book, except for the ones that were taken today. Lakshmi is, Kadagali Krishna. So this is her image of Kadagali. Sorry, this is the mural art that she did. A mural painting is quite traditional Kerala painting as well. So this is also by Lakshmi Iyer, was specially curated for this book. And there's a Pulikali dance, Pulikali painting that it's somewhere, yes, oh, it's small. This Pulikali that is done, this is done by the men, not by the women. It's visually stunning, and children do it too. Children play, children dress up as, Puli, and this is dance that's done. And so she painted all of this in a series for the story of Onam. What is the next question, Nalina? I got so caught up with the painting. So I absolutely love the painting.
Beautiful. They completely distract your attention and, get your thought away from it. But essentially, I was asking you about how Onam fits into the overall calendar of festivals.
Oh, yes, the festival.
By the Malayali community. Yeah.
So you see, the Muslims will celebrate the Hari Raya and the Muslim festivals. The Christians will celebrate Christmas. So they celebrate those. Malayalis will celebrate, but they also participate in the Onam, with Onam festival, and Onam is a secular festival. Malayali Hindus celebrate Onam and Vishu. These are the two that have that are celebrated right now, that have continued to be celebrated. So Vishu is the new year, and that happens early in the year in April. It's either a day before or a day after Tamil New Year. And I think all the Indian communities, many of the Indian communities, sorry, not all, have their New Year's at about the same time. The celebrations differ slightly, and Vishu Kani is quite an important aspect of that, of Vishu. The first sight of yours has to be of abundance. So you close the children's eyes, the men's eyes. The women wake up very early to do this, yeah. So and make sure that lights are lit, and and all the fruits and everything. Whatever you see, gold and new clothes. So new clothes, gold, lots of fruits, vegetables, rice, and the whole prayer room lit up. And that's the sight the child sees. You close the child's eyes and bring the child there. And so you've got to bring the child by 5 or 6 o'clock. The child is going to school to see Vishu, the Vishu Kani, which means the first sight on Vishu Day, because it's the first day. So that is the other festival. So when you look at it, so Vishu is only celebrated by the Hindu Malayalis, whereas Onam is celebrated by all the Malayalis. So we celebrate it as a circular festival. And of course, any reason to do anything that is fun and brings us together in a very positive, happy light, and a happy place, brings us to a happy place, we will do it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anitha, for being such a vivacious presenter who has taken us through really the, wonderful tradition of Onam as it's been observed in Singapore, and of course its roots in India. We're so grateful to you that you did this on Onam Day as well, and for making us a part of your Onam celebration. So thank you so much, and Onam Asham Sakal to you on behalf of the Indian Heritage Center. And with that, we would like to thank everyone for joining us, and remind you that the next in the series is going to be in October by Nilanjana Sen Gupta on the tradition of Durga Puja amongst the Bengali community. So please follow us on our PTIX page for more information on the event. And with that, we'd like to wish you a very good weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye.